This is a fun stat I heard. Graham Potter would have been only the second manager to beat United with 2 different clubs in the same season.
Whoa!
He would have done it for Brighton and for Chelsea.
Whoa,
so he
that would have
was
been
that close to doing it. So let's talk about Graham Potter first. We talked a little bit about Ten Hag, and we can touch back on that if we want to. But let's talk about Graham Potter. How well is he doing under Chelsea? Pablo, you're cued in on the Chelsea perspective, of course. Let's jump over to you again. What are your thoughts so far under what Graham Potter's doing with Chelsea?
I feel really weird whenever I speak about anyone about Chelsea under Potter. Actually, because I want to open up to you guys as well because I want to get some outside perspective. But it's very early days. I think Potter is going to be a project manager, and I need to accept that as a Chelsea fan. So that's going to be different to what we usually have. My worry is that does that ever actually happen at Chelsea, or after 18 months and we don't have a title, will it all collapse and will he be sacked? That's the question mark. Are they actually going to say, no, we are actually going to build something here. We're actually going to wait a few years and let this become a bit of a dynasty. Is that actually going to happen at Chelsea? That's my concern. In terms of how Chelsea are playing and how they're doing, is it that different to how Chelsea are playing under Tuchel, by the way, is my question. It's 3-4-3 or 3-4-1-2. It's all about it's not amazing attacking football. It's not very fluid. Especially the United game wasn't fluid at all, by the way. It was awful to watch for the neutral. I feel sorry for the neutral, honestly. Nothing happened. And how good are Chelsea actually playing? We played quite well a few games against Milan, I understand. That was Champions League, which we've always been good at with this structure. Aston Villa, we won unconvincingly. Brentford, again, we look decent defensively. The defenders dig in, like Chalobah and Thiago Silva. They're still performing at a high level, and you've got Jorginho in midfield digging in. But in attack, we're just lackluster, aren't we? How good are we actually playing? And it's early days, so I'm not going to base is Potter a good manager off the early days. But my kind of question to you guys is, how good do you actually see Chelsea right now? Because is much changing? And do you think it almost will change under Potter over time? Because for me right now, we've kind of gone off the Tuchel foundations and he's kind of building off them. And he's made a good start. We haven't lost a game yet. He has made a strong start. We're kind of back on track in the league. We're back on track in the Champions League. So fair play to Potter. But I'm just interested to see where it goes, to be honest.
Yeah, BUGA and I are both making faces. BUGA, you want to start off?
Look, I'm not going to come here and say I actually want Pablo to let us perhaps afterwards give us a little more context about the game between Chelsea and United, because it's Potter's biggest game so far that he's had, probably. Well, the one against the Champions League, but the red card just changed everything. Yeah. But anyhow, I wanted to mention that because I think Chelsea made the right appointment. So in a way, I do feel that Chelsea being such a team allergic to projects and just being more about results reminded me a lot about how I'm going to make this analogy to how things work in Spain, where you have Real Madrid. That's all about, it's about projects, but it's more about the results. Like it's actually the club that makes the investments about players and things like that. And the manager just needs to focus on getting those results. But Xavi, for instance, in Barcelona, or Pep Guardiola, or whoever was before them, they had the whole control. They wanted a project to be made and be looking at the youth development, looking at different things, trying to instill a way of playing. And I feel that with Potter, you kind of can get a little bit of that as well. And I really do like how you still are able to work on those foundations. And I think that's going to be something early doors that we're going to be seeing for Chelsea. Yeah. Potter is going to be working off those foundations from Thomas Tuchel, and then he's going to be trying to incorporate his different ways of playing. But in a way, he was also very similar. Playing already a 5 at the back that could turn into a 3 when he was at Brighton. So I feel it makes sense. And like I mentioned in a previous podcast, I think that Todd Bowley wants to give an image to Chelsea that they're kind of the London club, the British club. And that's precisely what I think an American owner will give to a team. American owners or American CEOs, for that reason, the way that the market works in America, it's all about that. It's all about the image. It's all about the media, how it consumes what you produce, and how's your stature and positioning within that industry. So I feel that's what Todd Bowley wants to do with Chelsea. And I feel when I close my eyes, it makes sense. I do see that. I do see like Graham Potter in front of the Stamford Bridge, next to the badge. It makes sense. It's this London club that we can push forward. We have the right way of playing. Come to us. Something that, for instance, your rivals, someone like Arsenal, do have. I feel that Arsenal do have that thing when you think about London. Okay, this Arsenal North London club is all for the the people who just like football, maybe the areas of London that are outside of it, in the outskirts. It makes sense. So having Chelsea be the opposite, be the core, the nucleus of that, being central London, being the team that can have you support, it makes sense. And I feel that's where Bowley is going for.
Mm-hmm.
You said it. For those that are just listening to the audio, you didn't see me, but I was silently applauding what BUGA was saying there in terms of the image. I think when you look at Graham Potter's history as a manager, he doesn't have international experience. You know, BUGA mentioned that match against United being his biggest match probably in his career. Yeah. He just doesn't have that star power. You know, I don't think there's a lot of names right now of available managers that do have that clout, that do have that presence. Mm-hmm. But from an outside perspective, on a world scale, it doesn't put Chelsea in that elite status. But what it does do, to BUGA's point, is it gets it back with those English roots. He's spent all of his time, I think, as a player in England. I'm looking at his senior career here. I think he spent his entire career in England. Most of his management time was in the UK. So I think that's what it is. It's getting back to those roots. It's bringing in somebody who's going to connect with a Chalobah, a Mason Mount, and those young English players to get back to that London identity, as BUGA said. I think I really do think that's dead on.
And before, Paulo, you jump in, because I know you have a lot to talk about, but I'm just going to give you a little bit more of context of what I think as well. I feel Potter, we know that he had some time in Ostersund, for instance, in the Belgium. Yeah. I love the way, I don't know if you saw this, but in Sky Sports, there was this interview between him and the Brentford manager, Thomas Frank is his name, I think. Mm-hmm. And they had them both, I don't know if you, John, saw this, but they had them both before the game talking to each other. Before the game, the two managers talking before the game, and they managed to ask questions to each other. And Thomas Frank said, "Oh, why do you change formation so much, or whatever?" But the praise that he gave Graham Potter is the fact that he said, "I admire what you've done, because you've worked your way up the ladder. You're not a manager that we're going to talk about later, like a Steven Gerrard that just has the name, bang, you go straight into it. Gerrard has done it a bit, gone to Rangers like that, but the trajectory of someone like a Potter is bigger, is way longer. And that comes with different ways of understanding football and whatnot. And I feel that if you think about what's the best way for Chelsea to compete for a Manchester City later down the road, this could be a twisted take in its own sense, but I feel it could be creating a project with someone like Potter. Like, maybe not now, maybe not tomorrow, maybe not the next season, but you're taking a look at what Manchester City has done. Manchester City, Pep Guardiola leaves, and Manchester City is going to stay. Manchester City is going to stay in the coup of elite European teams, and I think people forget that. I feel people say, oh, they don't have the Champions League, but Pep Guardiola was brought in more to create that. See, they're now top 2, top 1 team in the world, and they're going to stay there. They're going to stay there with the Real Madrid, Barcelona's. And Chelsea, sometimes they're up there, they're down, but they're not always constantly up there. And I feel that creating a project, building Chelsea to be something, could start with Potter.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think it's Chelsea's best shot at a project, and I think it's what we've got to go for. I think obviously what Chelsea have got to do is stick by him, and I think Potter's a good man to do that. He strikes me as a very calm character, certainly calmer than Thomas Tuchel, but it'll all be down to that communication between Potter, the board, and also the players, because I think that there's a culture at Chelsea where the players are quite happy to not turn on a manager. I don't think Chelsea turn on the manager, I gotta say, but people start getting pissed off and irritated. You know that. And I know there are a lot of players who were like that with Tuchel towards the end, and I think Potter, he's a very calm guy and very down to earth. He speaks a lot about the person. I think it was a degree he took on human psychology or something like that. It was very interesting. He's very. I know Potter's very focused on actually understanding footballers as people, and he's massive on that. I know he is, and that's something that's quite new in the game actually that I quite like, and I think that will help him stick around quite a lot. So he comes across to me as that sort of character. I'm just wondering, as Mr. Chelsea, are we going to stray too far away from that being obsessed with winning titles route? I don't want us to turn into a mediocre club who are happy for this project where everyone's happy and holding hands, but we're just getting top 4 every season and nothing else.
I don't want to be Arsenal.
Yeah, I've got no appetite to be Arsenal with you, to be honest. You know, ultimately, you know, we're the pride of London, and we want more titles. You know, we don't just want to be, you know, pissing them out in top 4 and getting to the semi-finals of competitions and saying what a great season. I just don't want us to stray that far. I don't think we will, because I think the culture of the club is there, but that's where I like Thomas Tuchel and other managers. And I'm not saying Potter is this, but I'm just hoping he doesn't go down that path just because he comes across as quite a calm character.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that makes sense. So limited patience, we're hearing from Pablo's perspective. Give him a little bit of time, but limited patience on the Chelsea end.
I've got to be better, John. I've got to be better with patience.
No, you're good. You're good.